All right, welcome everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Kelly. I own Dogkind and I specialize in confidence building for very fearful and anxious dogs. And today we're talking about fear of novelty. This is really common in extremely anxious and sensitive dogs. Any kind of change in the environment or going to a new place or a change in their routine can sometimes really throw them off. And so we'll talk about that a little bit, and then some strategies I use to help our dogs handle these changes a little more confidently. Confidence in the face of change, dealing with fear of novelty. This is for you if you have a fearful, timid, or anxious dog and your dog struggles with anything new and you'd like to help them be more confident and relaxed even when things are changing. Why do our dogs fear new things? Well, we don't always know the answer. It can be very individual. Dogs can be genetically predisposed to developing fears or reacting fearfully to new things. They can also have learning histories, especially sort of negative learning histories. So they've learned that new things can be scary, or maybe things that resemble the new thing that they're currently afraid of in the past that was bad news for them. So it could be experience. It can also be lack of experience, like lack of socialization as a puppy. They never learned that new things were good, and because they didn't have a lot of experiences, also a lot of things are new to them as adults, and that can be a problem as well. But ultimately, the why our dogs are afraid of new things is less important than how we're going to address it now, since we always have to work with the dog in front of us. Okay, so here's my approach, my general approach to reducing fear of change. I start usually by teaching skills, or just reinforcing behaviors the dog already does using positive reinforcement, which means stuff the dog likes. So treats, toys, play. And then once these skills are very strong, you can start introducing tiny bits of change at a time into the training sessions. So it's not all just the same. The training session shouldn't always look exactly the same. You'll want to practice skills over and over in many new contexts, and one sort of quote-unquote potential shortcut I will tell you about today involves using familiar props, or basically a generalization aid, and I'll give you a couple examples of those. So first, I often get asked, well, what skills should I teach? And there's really no right answer to this. It depends on your dog and the situation. Personally, I prefer skills that are pretty low effort, unless you happen to have one of those dogs for whom sitting still is harder than jumping around, in which case they might prefer a higher effort behavior. But usually I choose a low effort behavior, ideally something your dog already does fairly often, because then it'll be easy to have lots of opportunities to reinforce it, and they're telling you that it's something they choose to do already, which is helpful. And it's good if the behavior will be useful in many contexts, or at least all the contexts that you have in mind for it. For example, eating treats, even though we often don't think of it as a skill, is in fact behavior we can and often need to train with our sensitive dogs. And so I'll usually start there, and I'll tell you more about that in the free training I have next week. So eating treats, looking at you, or looking at the thing, or whatever the thing is that might concern them. I like hand targeting or object targeting. Not always, but those can be good options. And sometimes settle is also another good one, like settle on a mat or a bed. But again, this can be very individual. Okay, so generalization props, what's the deal with that, and why might it help? So if you have a dog for whom novelty or change is hard, they tend to get startled easily, they won't take treats when things are too different from what they're used to, then often including something familiar can help. So the reason I have this picture of the fire hydrant is because dogs who learn to pee on fire hydrants, a fire hydrant can be in a way a generalization aid for peeing behavior in many different locations. They see the fire hydrant and they're like, this is a good place to pee. And so we can do something similar with the behaviors that we are trying to train or increase the frequency of. And it is a way of making what is new and different less new and different, because we have something familiar to the dog. Common examples in dog training include mats. So if you've ever done mat work or heard of mat work, which usually involves teaching a dog to go lie down on a mat and relax there or stay there when other stuff is going on. One reason that can be so popular is because you can roll that mat up and take it with you different places. So a mat can be a good generalization aid. And if you've been with me and listening to my videos for any length of time, you probably have also heard me talk about treat targets, which are basically another generalization aid that I like to use, and it's just a little, some kind of little item. I use coasters a lot, like silicone coasters, that you can put a treat on, and it tells the dog that food is happening here. Oh, Sarah says, dependent on the situation, we may use a hand target or a spin. You have a bouncy dog. That's awesome, Sarah. And yeah, I have one of my current students, actually, I think it's a student I'm about to show you a video of, Tulip. One of her preferred sort of tricks is a spin, and it can be a good way to snap her out of it is not a very behavioral phrase, but it can be a good alternative to ask her for in certain situations because she really likes doing it, and she's more likely to do it than some other behaviors that might be less preferred. All right, let's first I have a little video of Pancake. So Pancake here is my dog, who's essentially feral when I got him. And right here he is on a mat that also is a snuffle mat. And I did mat work with him using this mat and taught him to go there and to relax and lie down and eat. I only had one of these to start, but now I have several. And the way we have leveraged that is this is where you go for treats when Dad is moving around. Because Dad moving around was cause for concern. And so he's learned, I can run between my mats. So they're actually also doubling as what I would call a treat target, where food happens. Here he just runs ahead. So that's one example of the behaviors here are follow and go to a place and eat. And we're generalizing this to different parts of the house using this mat as the prop or a treat target. And then this is going to be Tulip. These are little muffin cups. They're like, they're silicone muffin cups for baking. And this was a while ago now, but she now is quite a bit braver outside. But at this time, her mom was working on her worrying about outside sights and sounds. And so her mom's putting down a treat target and then putting a treat in it. And the behaviors you're seeing from Tulip are going to mom, looking at mom, and then food delivered in the treat target. So it is moving with mom or going to mom, but it's also going to the treat target. So you'll see here, we're having a little bit of a stare. So mom just waits. And I don't know what, I think there might have been a dog barking or something. And then, but she knows, right now I go to the treat target. And this is where food happens. So that's another way where having a prop in the environment can help. And if any of you have done any of the pattern games, this may look familiar to you. You don't have to have multiple of them in a line like this. You can use them in lots of ways. But one really great thing about having these kind of little props is that, again, they are generalization aids. So Tulip learned go to the treat target and eat out of it in the house first, where she was really comfortable. Your action steps, if you should choose to take some, include start by choosing one or more, ideally more than one, coping skill, quote unquote coping skill. So things that your dog could do when there is something new or stressful in the environment that would be better than perhaps what they might otherwise choose to do. And these can be brand new skills, but it's easier for both of you if you pick something they already are pretty good at. Generalize those skills with lots of practice. And if you can, I I find these generalization aids, these props, treat targets, mats, etc., to be extremely powerful for helping you generalize. And that's usually the limiting factor, right? Most of our sensitive or fearful dogs, there's some context in which they can do all the things. They can relax, they can look at us, they can eat a treat. But they can't do it, as soon as they step outside the house or whatever. So using these generalization aids can help you get those behaviors in other locations and contexts. Now, I should say that it doesn't get rid of the need for training. So if your dog is currently too afraid to take treats outside the front door, you can't just add a treat target and expect it to suddenly work. You're still going to need to do incremental work and generalization practice, but it can help if you're having trouble. It can be a kind of a bridge. And finally, I will now give you the free webinar sign up info. This is a workshop I'm doing next week right here, dogkindtraining.com/webinar, how to teach your fearful dog confidence. And there are a couple different time options. So if you go to that link, just pick the time that works best for you, and then you'll get the information on it. And we'll talk about how to take a dog who's extremely sensitive and worries a lot and maybe won't consistently eat treats, and you're kind of stuck in your training, and how you can step back, look at the big picture, and make a plan that really honors your dog's sort of individuality and their fears, takes those into account, and then works to help them feel safer, have choices, and start to develop skills that help them enjoy the world in kind of a bigger way.